Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms. So today is going to be kind of a little bit of a story, but more of like a combination of stories. And it's really interesting on the heels of what I talked about yesterday with the Blizzard story, what happened today. So I came home last night from listening to my audiobook. It was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I went to the sink to go fill the water bowl for the dogs, and no water came on. And I was like, what is going on? Did our pipes freeze? What is going on? And so I sat there for a second. I was like, okay, like it wasn't coming on like a little bit. It just wasn't coming on at all. So anytime something happens in our neighborhood association, like the management company always emails us. And so I went and I got on my email, and it said we had gotten an email from them saying that the water had been shut off, that there had been like a major water main had busted, and so they had to turn off all the water in the area, or it would freeze all of our pipes. And I'm like, ugh. You know, the king of talking about gratitude. And I'm like, So anyway, but I was like, okay, we have bottled water in the refrigerator. We have like big, Alex has like a big like pure water tank thing that he uses, and I have like a gallon. So it wasn't like we didn't have water, right? It was just inconvenient. We couldn't flush toilets. We couldn't like just turn on the tap. We couldn't do the dishwasher, all that kind of stuff. So it was inconvenient, but it wasn't like we, didn't have water. And I was thinking about that because I was just sitting here and I was like running around today, and it was like so hot in here in our house. And I even have the windows, the drapes open looking out over the snow and stuff. And I went to like the thermostat, and Alex had it up to 72. And I was like, why do we have it up to, it's so hot in here, right? And I started thinking about that, and I've kept this gratitude journal since the first, and I've kept many gratitude journals in my life. I've made tons of gratitude lists. I really believe in living in gratitude. I really believe that when you are thankful for what has been given to you, that you will be given more in abundance, and you will be able to give more in abundance. And I really, really believe that philosophy, And I also believe that out of gratitude, we become givers. And I want to be a giver. I don't want to be a taker. And I've met a lot of takers, and I met a lot of givers. And over time, givers seem to have more peace, more serenity, and more balance in their life. So anyway, it's just something that I aim to be in my life, But I was sitting here and I was thinking about it, and I talked about this on my video yesterday, that I've thought a lot about like people that are so much less fortunate than I am, that don't have places to go in the winter, and they're sleeping in like doorways of buildings, and they don't have food, and they're going to soup kitchens if they can make it there. There are a lot of people in Indianapolis that like we were not prepared for this winter that we're having, right? And so a lot of people live under bridges, a lot of people live under interstate bridges, a lot of people, where people live in Indianapolis is crazy, and a lot of people are on the outskirts of Indianapolis and can't get accessibility to the needs that they need in the city. It's not like they could just walk a block and be at a soup kitchen, if that makes sense, right? So one of the big things in Indianapolis is, I'm like getting into my spiel of what I used to do for a living, but one of the things that we have in Indianapolis is a lot of outreach programs for people that can't make it in, and then they take food to them, or they, all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking about that today. On top of all of that, 2 years ago, Scott County, Indiana, was it 2 years ago? Maybe it was 3 years ago. Scott County, Indiana, in like October or November, had the highest rate of HIV in the country, of like the newest cases. And at the time, Vice President Pence, who was Governor Pence of Indiana at the time, he made Scott County a needle exchange program because so many people were getting sick from using dirty needles. And, I was thinking about that today. I was like, I don't condone any kind of addiction. You guys know, I don't condone any kind of use. You guys know that. Like, I always want people to get help, right? But I've seen people dope sick, okay? And it is like living death. It seriously is. And I was thinking about that today. I was thinking about all the people that are older that can't get out of their homes to get the medical care they need. I was thinking about all the people that can't get the food they need. And I was thinking about, addicts out there that are dope sick and can't get to what they need, and they're going through withdrawals in their home, right? And I was thinking about all this, and I was thinking, I just had a moment where I stopped, and I was like looking out the back, and I thought, you are so blessed for the life that you have, that your biggest complaint today is that, and our water is back on after 12 hours. Your biggest complaint today is that you couldn't flush a toilet and Alex has the heat too high. Like, live in the moment of gratitude. And I was thinking back to my first 6 months sober, and my first 6 months sober, I got out of treatment and I moved back into my apartment because I was really resistant to going to a halfway house. Now I wish I had gone to a halfway house. But my dad was like willing to pay for my rent, and he was willing to buy me food once a week at the grocery store, and that was it, period. I had no car, I had no way to get around, I had to ask people for rides and all this kind of stuff. And I also wasn't hanging out with any of my old friends, so it was all new people that I met. And I can remember like going to this 12-step club here in Indianapolis, and I was there from probably 10 o'clock in the morning to like 9 o'clock at night. People would buy me cheeseburgers at the little like coffee stand there, and chips and coffee and all kinds. Coffee was free a lot of times at those meetings. And, coffee isn't free at a lot of the meetings that I go to. And so I try to give back and like buy a pot of coffee for people that can't afford to buy coffee. And it's just those little things, But I was thinking back on my life that year, and it's like, I didn't have a lot of clothes. I had like 3 sweatshirts max, which that's a lot more than some people have. I had like 2 pairs of jeans and a pair of winter boots. And I kept on like just recycling those clothes and wearing them over and over and over again. And I had this big winter coat that my dad had bought me, this like parka. And all I did was go to meetings. And the only thing I spent money on was cigarettes and food, period. And most of the time people were generous enough to like buy me cigarettes or buy me food or, take me. I mean, I asked for at the end, I'll never forget, at the end of every meeting, I was like, I don't have a car if somebody would be willing to give me a ride home. I never, ever, not once in 6 months did I worry about finding a ride home because of the generosity of other people. And I think back to that simple time, right? When I had, no cable and I had like very little food. My dad would buy me like orange juice, like turkey, cheese, and, like some macaroni and cheese and ramen noodle. And that was like what I had to get me through a week, It wasn't like I was eating steak dinners. I had very, very little, I went to the library a lot and bought and read books from the library. I didn't spend a lot of money and I didn't need a lot of money. And yet it was one of the happiest periods of my entire life. And I think that what happens over time is that we start getting this idea of quantity versus quality. First we want nicer things. So it's like, okay, so, I have a bag. Well, now I want a North Face bag. Well, now I want a Patagonia bag. Well, now I want a Louis Vuitton bag. It's like, it's never good enough, right? And then it's like, okay, well, I have a Louis Vuitton bag. Now I want 2 Louis Vuitton bags. And then we get to this point where we start feeling justified. We start feeling entitled to have these things that we feel impact us or make us different in some way. When in reality, that Louis Vuitton bag, and I know people will disagree with me on this, and hey, I think it's great if you want to have it. I just bought my husband a Louis Vuitton wallet for Christmas because that's what he wanted, okay? But I think that really, if we really came down to, brass balls and thought about it, that Louis Vuitton bag is really not a whole lot different than a dollar bag that you get at the dollar store. It just isn't, it's just a bag that carries things. And I think when you have that perspective, then it allows you to have the luxuries. You can have the Louis Vuitton, but you can still live in the humility of your heart. And I'm not telling anybody not to have those things. I like nice things too. But I don't ever want to forget for 1 second where I came from or how important those simple times were for me, so that I get entitled and I start bitching about the water being off or the heat being too high in my house or whatever. Because, those are the moments of life that you learn the most from when you have the least. At least for me, I have, And those have been some profound moments for me. This is my 3rd relationship that I've been in long term. And in each relationship, my boyfriend and I, or now my husband and I, have had financial difficulties where we have had to look at each other and say, okay, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to go to the next step, And those pieces have just built us stronger. And, for Alex and I, it was in our first year together, and I had, left a career, the year before, and things were tough and things were tight. And, he had just got out of school and he wasn't like making a lot of money. And I'll never forget, we sat down when we moved in together, and he was like, well, we can start, cutting coupons, and we can if we want to go out to dinner on a date night, we can eat at Applebee's and do the 2 for $20. And we did that stuff, and we had great dates. We came home and we looked into the guide to see what kind of movie was on, on TV and stuff like that. And, it's really easy to live a simple life. And that doesn't mean you can't have nice things. I don't, for one second, for people to think that I'm passing judgment on people that have nice things. We all like nice things. And if we can afford them, I think that's great, right? But what we can't afford to lose, what is priceless, okay, is the gratitude in our hearts for the simplicity of what really makes our hearts tick. And life is really about those small moments. Life is not about the buying of the bag and the this and that. And I've had those moments where I'm like, oh my God, I get to purchase this, or oh, I just got a brand new car. And it's like, in that moment, I feel so great, but it doesn't last. It doesn't last long at all, It's the moments of gratitude that I feel like I'm so thankful that I am able to have these things, or I'm so grateful that I have water, that I can go turn on a tap and drink, when there are millions of people in the world that don't have clean water. And it's such a sad state of our world to me, that if I have to forgo something for somebody else, I'm willing to do that. But that doesn't mean that I can't have the things that I want, and neither can you. But we have to work harder. At least I think I have to work harder on being a more humble person and looking at the things that I'm grateful for in my life and really living every day with a life of intention and gratitude. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.